Hi, my name's Anwen Jones.
And I'm Bex Griffiths.
And together we run Rhizome Community Herbal Clinic. And you can see all our herbal bottles behind us. We're in our clinic room.
Our clinic's been open for about 10 years and we've been teaching together for 8 years. We teach a lot of evening courses and a year course, and we're in the middle of teaching actually kitchen medicine course and foundation course, which we will rerun in about a month.
And we've started running it online because of the current lockdown situation. So if you're interested in joining us for a more in-depth look at using herbs and using readily available kitchen ingredients to help maximise health, then check out our website and sign up for our next round of courses.
Right now though, we're releasing a series of videos to look at how to build immunity, how to build resilience, and then we will look at how to treat viruses, how to increase our resilience with acute immunity. So today's class is on immune tonics. So we are working around, we showed this in the first video, this is a handout that we've been teaching with for the last couple of years, and we are looking at this one at the top, immune tonics.
So I'll attach a photograph of this handout to the bottom of to the comments in the video, so you can print it off if you want to have a much closer look at what we've done.
So immune tonics are herbs, mushrooms and seaweeds that build resilience, that have shown to enhance our ability to fight infection, help with allergies.
So it's not as simple as saying that these various things boost the immune system. So you might have heard that phrase a lot, that things boost the immunity, echinacea boosts the immune system. And for anyone who knows anything about the immune system, it's not a simple matter of up and down. It's not as simple as that. The immune system is a very, very complex system. And generally, when we talk about immune tonics, we're not looking at things which just will blanket increase immune function. What they do is they make sure that they interact with our body in a way that improves our ability to fight infections, but doesn't cause it to overreact and respond to things it doesn't need to respond to, and which is what's happening with allergies. So they're more kind of modulating the immune system. And it's a very complex process that is slightly different for each of these plants. But if we use the phrase boost the immune system, then it's just a shorthand and it's actually not really quite an accurate description of what's happening.
So we're going to talk really briefly about some of the herbs, mushrooms and seaweeds that are useful, and in our longer courses we go in more depth. So we're going to look at seaweeds. Seaweeds have a long history, not so much in England, but in Wales and Ireland, in Japan, in China, of being used to enhance immunity. So we harvest our own seaweeds in Devon and in Wales.
So it's not advised that you go to the beach this weekend and do this, but it's something that we do every year. We make sure that we've got a good stock in the kitchen.
So I'm just showing you dulse. That is dulse. It's a red seaweed, and this is, I kind of harvest my own seaweeds, and I buy a lot of seaweeds as well, just for ease. So this is from the Pembrokeshire Beach Food Company, and this is dulse seaweed. Dulse is like one of the tastier seaweeds. It's really lovely. You find it in the lower tide regions.
And it's really good that you can actually buy local seaweeds in the shops now. It used to be that you could only buy seaweeds that were imported from Japan or China, which is quite crazy considering how much coastline we have. So it's really great that these companies are providing local seaweeds.
And how many species of seaweeds we have around the island?
So this one, lava, so this is one that is very traditionally gathered in Wales to make lava bread, which is where the fresh seaweed is kind of cooked up and boiled, and it comes out looking a bit like spinach, but it tastes of the sea. Or you can use it dried, and it's the same species of seaweed that's used to make nori. So it's probably one of the ones that you're most likely to have eaten. And again, like dulse, it's a red seaweed. So nutritionally, we classify the seaweeds as the brown ones, the red ones, and the green ones, which is quite a simple way to look at it.
The next one is seagrass and sea lettuce, and that's the kind of green seaweeds that you see further up in the high tide region. They look like grass, or there's sheets that look like lettuce. And you shouldn't, if you are at a beach and it's tons and tons of green seaweed, then that's showing that there's like more runoff. There's a runoff coming, and there's like a high nutrient runoff coming, and you shouldn't harvest from there. But generally, like a normal beach will have some seagrass and some sea lettuce around, and you can harvest that. The other one, I was just trying to find pieces of kelp. Kelp is
So that's the third category, the brown seaweeds.
The brown seaweeds. You can't see like little bits of kelp. They normally have them, the ones that like are on the beach, and there's like big fronds of kelp coming up, and they kind of like have a long stalk that holds, then there's the holdfast that holds onto the rock. And they are really high in iodine and have some of the, like most research on their anti-inflammatory, immune-enhancing effects. But we use all variety of seaweeds because all the seaweeds have like something slightly different that is useful.
So that kelp you're likely to find in Chinese cooking recipes. So it's called kombu when you buy it in the Chinese supermarket. It's one that's cooked with a lot, and it's one that we use an extract of in our clinic. Because of that iodine level. So the brown ones are particularly important for that.
If we just talk about the mushrooms together with the seaweeds, then we'll talk about how to use them, because they're both, we use them in very similar ways.
Yeah, we cook with them, so it's making a great big stock with all these different things.
So all mushrooms are immune tonics. They all contain a couple of chemicals in their cell walls that enhance immunity, and there's a lot of research around medicinal mushrooms, mainly from China, mainly from Japan, but more is coming out in Europe now. So all mushrooms are medicinal, so you can go and get your button mushrooms or the chestnut mushrooms, or different shops now are having like a variety of different mushrooms, that all of those are medicinal and they all have this immune tonic effect if they're cooked.
So it's a chemical that's really integral to the cell walls of the mushrooms, called beta-glucans, which interact with our immune system in a particularly good way. But that cell wall has to be broken down in order to release that nutritionally.
And the same with the seaweeds. So we're just going to show you a couple of
our favourite ones
of mushrooms that we use in the clinic. So we use this. We teach the people about mushrooms and seaweeds to use mainly as stocks and in soups. But we also use them as extracted capsules and powders in our clinic. We use a lot of medicinal mushrooms for supporting people with like cancer, with autoimmune conditions, with low immunity, with chronic fatigue. So it's like really important part of our clinic is using medicinal mushrooms, but they're really great kitchen medicine. So that's why we like teaching about them, because most people have access to some mushrooms. This one you can see is maitake. It's hen of the woods. You can find it in woods in the UK, but it's not very common.
And it's not out at the moment.
No.
But I have managed to find it in wild mushroom mixes that you sometimes see available in the supermarket, or you can buy them dried or powdered. And the other ones that you'll find in the supermarket that we use a lot are oyster mushrooms and shiitake mushrooms, which both have a really good nutritional and medicinal profile.
And you can get dried porcini mushrooms,
which are very tasty and very medicinal.
So what we do with seaweeds and mushrooms is we chop them up, we put them in a large amount of water, and we boil, then simmer for a long period of time. So
we're making a stock, essentially.
Yeah, 4 hours minimum. Sometimes I do it for 24 hours. Also adding all the culinary herbs, which have like high in nutrients, high in minerals, high in
antioxidants.
Anti-inflammatory chemicals. So I add like thyme and sage and rosemary and oregano, with all the different types of mushrooms and all the different types of seaweeds.
And you can add in some of the herbs that we mentioned in the last video. So I was just going to interject. The nettles particularly, I think, do well with this kind of long cook as well. They release all their minerals.
So you're cooking up the mushrooms with the seaweeds, and then at the end you can just use it as a soup or as a stew base. What I do is pour the liquid into ice cubes and freeze it. And every time I'm cooking, I'm kind of popping out the ice cubes and adding it to a meal. So constantly adding like the immune tonic nutrients to our food.
And it used to be a real important part of dealing with illness, this idea of convalescence, and soups and stews being a real important part of kind of building the system or nourishing a system that is kind of weakened by an illness. So I think this idea of reviving medicinal stocks and medicinal broths is a great idea.
So this is really useful to do now just to build resilience, but also during COVID-19, during having COVID-19 and afterwards, like Cameron said, the convalescence. This is a really great way. Often with fevers you lose your appetite because your body's like trying to fight the infections. Afterwards, just really taking it easy, and the stocks and the stews with the mushrooms or the seaweeds is a great way to rebuild your strength.
Yeah, resilience again being the key word. And there's a few herbs as well that we would add in with our mushrooms and seaweeds, and ones that we use in the clinic. So the first one I'm going to mention is not one that grows in the UK, but it is possible to grow it. You can also buy it in herb shops, but also you can often get it in Chinese supermarkets because it's a root that's used. It's this, it's called astragalus, or Chinese milk vetch, and in China it's traditionally added into these kind of medicinal soups and broths because it's a fairly sweet tasting tonic root that is really amazing for the immune system.
Then the next one is burdock root, which has an effect on immunity and supporting immunity. So we talked about that in the first class, in the first video. So it's a root, and you can harvest. If you see these big leaves around now at the edge of fields or woods, you can harvest that root. And often, just to talk about sustainability, when we're encouraging people to go out and harvest, you need to be as conscious as you can about what you're doing and conscientious about the amount of herbs there are. So if you know this is a rare herb, then you don't really harvest it in the wild. If we know something is rare, then we always grow it. Some of the roots that we talk about when we harvest, they're really common. Some of them are actually on the noxious weed list, so like people want you to harvest them.
Like the dock root, we talked a bit about dock, didn't we?
And the main herbs, the roots that we talk about is yellow dock, burdock root and dandelion root, which are really prolific, really common, and they're the only roots that we encourage people to harvest in the wild.
So this plant here is probably one that you're familiar with. This is the elder tree. And we use the elderberries in the autumn as a really effective immune tonic, and we use it in a lot of our cough syrups and cold and flu mixes. And usually by this time of year, the only place we can get our elderberries is in the freezer from where we've had them since last autumn, or you can buy dried elderberries. In the spring, further into the summer, we'll get the flowers, which are very distinctive. And the flowers make a really good tea, which are useful to help treat fevers. They're useful as an anti-allergy herb as well. But at the moment, the elder tree is just coming into leaf. And you can gather the leaves, if you can see, just making sure that you know that you're getting the right tree and the right leaf. It's got this distinctive kind of 5-lobed shape. But yeah, it's very important to get your tree ID correct. But if you gather these fresh elder leaves, and you need to boil and simmer in order to deactivate, there's a constituent in raw elder leaves and the raw berries actually that can upset people's stomachs. So you chop your leaves up, you gather your fresh leaves, you put them in a pan, cover it in water with a lid, and then just simmer that for several hours until the water level starts to reduce. And then that can make a very potent antiviral tea.
So just to say as well, our herb shops are open. You can buy herbs online. So some of the herbs that we've talked about that you might not be able to get, you could try and get another way, or you can focus on getting mushrooms and using the seaweeds, which are much easier to get hold of. And I think actually some of the seaweeds now, some of the native, like UK seaweeds, are in bigger supermarkets, which is like a real change from just importing from Japan, that people are realising that we have seaweeds around here.
And then when the restrictions are lifted and we're all able to go to the beach again, hopefully it'll renew your interest in seaweeds.
So we are supporting people through COVID-19, and if you feel like you want extra support or you're struggling with COVID, then get in touch, because we are taking on new patients and supporting people remotely. So I just want to say a little bit about Herbalists Without Borders as well. We are being able to be a bit more specific because we have a much bigger dispensary here for people with COVID, but Herbalists Without Borders Bristol is about to start providing like more generic immune support and sleep support and chest rubs. and we're just figuring out a way how to do that. So.
And that's for people who are on the streets, people who are especially vulnerable, and refugees, which has been the focus of the Herbalists Without Borders project in Bristol over the last few years. So we'll see you in our next video.